After the last election, I said that I believe that the Democrats did not learn anything and that currently they are still on a very dark path to future failures. Now, ultimately, when I say future failures, it's really going to be for their base, not so much for them. The Democrats are going to be all right. They still have their jobs. They're going to continue to have their jobs. They're going to continue to make millions of dollars. They're going to continue to insider trading. So don't listen to these folks in left-wing media talking about the Democrats lost and they keep losing. They lose nothing. AOC ain't going nowhere. All the key Democrats ain't going nowhere. It's we that lose. It's the voters who always lose. The Republicans and Democrats never lose. Losing a presidential election is irrelevant. People say, oh, you don't have any power to do what? They don't want to do anything. They're not there to serve us. They're there to serve themselves. And they don't need to be in power to serve themselves. So they're good. We're the ones in trouble. Well, currently right now, based on what I'm seeing, it looks like my assessment was accurate. So left-wing media is on this lame-ass plan. You know, we need our left-wing Joe Rogan. They think they could podcast their way out of this. I'm watching folks like Destiny, Adam Mockler, trying to do the right-wing thing. Think they could just bring on a bunch of, like the DNC chair people come on and just sit there nodding. Okay, right? I feel like I'm watching a Joe Rogan video or I'm watching some right-wing podcast video. Listen, man. There's a reason why a higher percentage of people with degrees, and I don't have a degree myself, vote for Democrats. With Democrats, the strategies that work with Republican voters, it's not going to work, right? The Republican Party, unfortunately, gets to talk about trans women and wokeness and CRT and culture war nonsense. Don't have to talk about policies and how they're going to address the things that actually matter to their voters. They don't need to do that. Their voters are so emotionally charged that they can feed them all this fear-mongering stuff and they will come out in droves and vote for the Republican candidate. That won't work with the Democratic base. The Democratic base need a little bit more substance. Now, you can manipulate them to some degree, like the Republican Party does, but not on that level. So stop looking at the Republicans and what right-wing media is doing and thinking, oh, you need to do that too. No, you have a different base. Your base needs more substance, right? They need more substance. They need more action. Like a lot of people, they always talk about messaging. Yes, messaging is important, but you know what's more important than messaging? Delivering. And I know they say, oh, Joe Biden delivered a lot. Listen, man, it doesn't matter what Joe Biden delivered. It doesn't matter that he was historically good or whatever you think about him. Because the thing about it is, if my house is burning down, you come and you give me a gallon of water and you put out, I don't know, maybe my TV was on fire and that gallon of water puts out the fire. I mean, that's good. And I appreciate that. But my whole house is on fire. So I don't really care that I appreciate it, but I don't have time to be worried about the fact that you put out one little fire, right? All the stuff that Joe Biden did and accomplished, okay, that's nice. But if people are struggling to pay their rent, their mortgage, they're struggling to survive, they're not making enough money, the costs are too high, they don't have health care, then what do they really care about? Oh, soft landing and our recovery was better than other countries and unemployment's really low. Those things are good. And they're not good things. But in the context of what Americans are struggling with, it's not enough. You got to first deliver a lot more than you've been doing, and then you could talk about the messaging. But the first thing starts with what you're delivering. You're not dealing with the same base. You can't use the same tricks that the Republican Party does, right? You could use a little bit of fear-mongering. It does have some level of effect, but it's going to be very limiting compared to the Republican Party at one point in time. They were literally saying that they're not running on anything. Those are exact words, but essentially, fuck out what election it was. But it was like, what's your policy? What are you guys running on? And they had nothing. They can do that and get away with it. They don't have to give you detailed policies like Kamala Harris did. They don't have to outline this is what we're going to do and that's what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. They don't have to do that. All they got to talk about is culture war this and culture war then, socialism, whatever, and their base will come out. You cannot use those tactics for the Democratic Party base. Not enough of them are going to be motivated to come out to vote based on that. Far too many people who vote for Democrats are actually interested in the things that really matter. Healthcare, income, the cost of groceries, right? You can't talk about, oh, white nationalists, this and racism, that, and we gotta save democracy. And listen, man, look at the results of the last election. That stuff is not going to work. You've got to deliver, and you got to deliver in a big way, and you got to stop comparing yourself to previous presidents. This is 25. This is today. Right? What previous presidents did does not matter. That's not the bar. No president in the last 15 years have delivered more than Joe Biden. It's irrelevant. If my house is on fire, I don't care how many different items in my house that you put out with your little gallon of water. I don't care because my whole house is on fire. I'm about to be homeless. Americans are about to be homeless. Some of them literally homeless. So all the statistics and this and how we did, yeah, he did a good job. I will acknowledge that, but it wasn't good enough. Until you recognize that with the Democratic base, you got to first do the work, then talk about the work you did, you're going to continue to lose elections. Not fail, because like I said, you guys never fail. you guys never lose. It's your base that loses. But if you want to win elections, you got to do the work. And again, the bar can't be, oh, what the last president compared to this president. Nah, man. This is a new day and age. You got to set a new bar, right? The bar has to be set based on where Americans are today. That's the bar. Where are Americans today? What do they need today? And how much of that am I going to deliver on? That's the only thing that matters. I don't care if a Democrat wins the next presidency and they do more than any president in the last 20 years, 30 years, 100 years. I don't care. And Americans won't care enough to come out and vote for you, right? Because their life and their struggles is not based on comparison to previous presidents. Their life and their struggles are based on what's happening now and what is the effect of what you're doing now on what's happening now. That's the only thing that matters. Doing changes that people can feel. I'm not saying that people didn't feel some of the changes that Joe Biden did. For example, those students who had their loans forgiven. But there's a lot more people who don't really feel what Joe Biden did. And that's because he didn't do enough. And in my view, didn't do enough because he didn't try hard enough, didn't fight enough, didn't have the sense of urgency enough. If you want to win for the people, you got to be a beast. You got to be a warrior. You got to come out swinging. You got to focus on where the people are today and how you're going to help them based on relative to where they are today. Forget about last presidents. Forget about the last 10 years, 20 years. That don't matter. What matters is what's happening now. And what's happening now is the Democrats did not deliver enough and simply doing propaganda where you go on these left-wing channels and they don't really push back and press you. So, no, nod the head. You might get some good clicks on that. You might make some good money. But come election day, the voters are going to want a little bit more than what y'all talking about. You bringing on people on your show and they talk, the messaging. They don't want to talk about the work and you ain't pressing them on that. You're doing a Joe Rogan, having somebody come on and say whatever. And you sitting there, That works on Republican voters. It's not going to work on Democratic voters. Democratic Party voters demand more than rhetoric. Until you realize that, the voters will continue to lose. Not the politicians, the voters.